It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
How sweep it is. A New York Mets sweep of the San Francisco Giants. It was not easy. It was very stressful. But at the end of the day, Edwin Diaz gets the job done. And the New York Mets win 3 straight games against the Giants. It is now a 7-game winning streak. A couple of days ago, when the Mets beat the Giants on Friday night, the opener of this series, we did a Rico episode 519 right after the game. And I couldn't get over how easy it was. How it was the easiest Met win of the year. It was easy to get distracted. It was easy to think about other things. It was just a nice, neat, and tidy Met victory in which there was very rarely a moment, maybe really early in the game, but rarely a moment where you thought the game was in doubt. Over the last 2 games, Saturday night and Sunday night, the New York Mets have done the exact opposite. I mean, both games until the final pitch were in very serious doubt. Edwin Diaz did Houdiniacs on both nights. It was certainly not the best of Edwin Diaz. Ultimately, he makes the big pitches when he needs to, especially in the finale of this series when he strikes out Willy Adames and he strikes out Matt Chapman and he ends the game with a bang. The night before, the Saturday game, he got freaking lucky. Let's be honest. I mean, he gave up a smoked line drive, and luckily Pete Alonso, who had an all-world defensive series, made the great leaping catch. But either way, whether it's an easy victory like Friday or it's a stressful victory like Saturday and Sunday, the bottom line is this. The New York Mets, after struggling for what felt like a very long time, being a mediocre team for a very long time, have put together one of their hottest streaks of the year. 7 consecutive wins, and it pretty much came out of nowhere when you think about this winning streak. You lose the first 2 games out of the All-Star break to Cincinnati. You win on a Sunday afternoon against the Reds. Again, not the easiest game. You win 3 straight games against the Angels at City, and now you put together 3 straight wins against the Giants. So it wasn't a winning streak that you really felt coming. But either way, they open up a 1.5 lead. Thank you to the New York Yankees for finally showing up and winning a game. The Met pitching has been outstanding. I mean, how incredible over the course of this series was the New York Met bullpen. Forget the rotation, because honestly, it was the same old from the rotation. Kodai Senga was very mediocre, walking the world, giving up 3 runs in 5 innings. David Peterson was pretty good. I thought he was lucky, but he got through 6 innings, put a lot of guys on base, gave up a lot of hard hit balls. Bottom line is 6 innings, 1 run is a tremendous performance. And Clay Holmes gave you the typical 5 innings, 1 run. But the Met bullpen, which needed to do a lot in this series, think about it. They need to go 4 innings in game 1. They need to go 3 innings in game 2. They need to go 4 innings in game 3. So they need 11 innings from this Met bullpen over these 3 games, and they gave up nada. 0. Did not give up a run. A contribution from just about everybody, whether it's Reed Garrett on back-to-back days, whether it's Edwin Diaz getting lucky on back-to-back days, whether it's the debut of Gregory Soto, which we'll get into, whether it's Brooks Raley getting a huge out. It was basically, even you go back to Friday, guys that aren't even on this team anymore, like Jose Castillo, like Rico Garcia, who God knows how much longer he'll be on the team. So a great all-around contribution from the Met bullpen. They win these games despite, and there's always a despite the fact that the big hit still kind of was something tough to hold on to if you're the New York Mets. They still struggled to get the big hit. They go 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position in the final game of this series. They go 2 for 11 in the Saturday game. Now, the good news is 4 for 25 is bad. 4 for 25 isn't very good, but it's much better than what they did holding the San Francisco Giants to with runners in scoring position. That's the great thing about perspective. We're doing the Rico Brogna. We're talking from the Met perspective. So from the Met perspective, we can say that Mets pitching did an incredible job of making the big pitch when they needed to, when the Giants had guys on base. Obviously, we don't look at that perspective when talking about the Mets struggles with runners in scoring position. We're not going to commend the Giant bullpen for making big pitches. But on our end, Met pitching whether it was David Peterson on Saturday, whether it was Clay Holmes on Friday, whether it was the collective of this bullpen throwing 11 innings, every time they needed to make the big pitch, every time the Giants had a golden scoring opportunity, the Mets would respond. And obviously that was highlighted by what happened in the bottom of the ninth inning of Sunday when the Giants loaded the bases up with one out and Willy Adames struck out and Matt Chapman struck out. Let's start with Sunday's game, the more recent one. If you're consuming us live on YouTube, the game that finished a mere minutes ago. This was such a wild, weird, back and forth kind of game. Kodai Senga was not good. It's the second straight performance Kodai had in which he was very shaky. Really his command. He walked 5 guys in 5 innings. One of them came on a pitch clock violation, so I guess you could put an asterisk next to that. But he gives up 2 big gopher balls, both to Matt Chapman. And really the second one was the killer because Senga somehow escapes the first 3 innings. Despite the command issues, he gets that break in the 3rd inning on the bad base running move by Heliot Ramos, went on the little, what should have been infield hit by Willy Adames. It was actually scored a fielder's choice. But that little infield hit, for some reason, Ramos ran right into Ronny Mauricio, who fielded the baseball, and basically Ramos slid right into him. So Senga got lucky getting out of the 3rd inning. He gives up the leadoff home run to Matt Chapman in the 4th inning. He puts a couple of guys on base. But despite that, despite the command issues, Senga gets the first 2 outs of the 5th inning. He's got the pitch count in the mid-80s. He's got 2 outs in the 5th inning, holding a 2-1 lead. And at that point, and I guess I blame my mental jinx for what happened next. After he got the ground out of Devers for the 2nd out in the 5th inning, I'm thinking to myself, wow, his pitch count's in the low to mid-80s. He's about to have a very efficient inning. If he can get Adames out quick, there's a chance Senga comes back out for the 6th. There's a chance if you're Carlos Mendoza, maybe you push Kodai just a little bit, maybe into the high 90s, maybe the low 100s to get 6 out of him, which felt crazy when his pitch count was 76-4. And Senga, who all year long, because his ERA does not match his whip. I mean, the guy puts tons of guys on base, but to Senga's credit, he always seems to make the big pitch, which is how he's kept runs off the board, which is how he's kept a very low ERA. So usually he puts a million guys on base and fights through it. He's got 2 outs, nobody out in the 5th inning. And out of nowhere, back-to-back pitches, he gives up a base hit to Adames, and then Chapman hits one over 400 feet. Senga was this close from at least escaping a nice little 5-inning 1-run performance. Hey, Clay Holmes, if you will. 5 innings, 1 run. And out of nowhere, he gives up the back-to-back base hits to Adames, the 2-run home run to Matt Chapman, which really ruined the start. And so now when you look at his final line, you see 5 innings, 3 runs, 5 walks. That's not good on any level. So he came close to getting through the 5, keeping this Met lead that they just got back. I mean, they have the 1-0 lead. The Giants tied on the Chapman home run. They immediately retake the lead on the back-to-back doubles by Alvarez and Mauricio, who had quite a game. And Senga gives it right back. And after Senga gave up the home run to Chapman, honestly, I thought they were going to lose this game. I thought to myself, you know what? The offense has missed out on golden opportunities. I don't know if this bullpen is going to be able to continue to escape the way it has over the first 2 games. And I honestly thought, especially with the Giants getting through kind of the worry part of this bullpen game, they get a scoreless out of Matt Gage. They get 3 innings out of Spencer Bevins. Our old friend Joey Lucchese's in this game. I thought, especially with Randy Rodriguez coming in, who's had a great year, I figured, you know what? Giants are just going to be able to make this lead hold up. So I thought after Senga gave up the home run in the 5th inning, that was going to be pretty much it, especially when they had the scoring opportunity in the 6th. Jeff McNeil hits a ball that I think is a home run in like any other ballpark. I assume it was. I'm not sure if they flashed that image on the ESPN broadcast. I did get a kick out of the Devers fly out to left field. And we got Ravitch and Eduardo Perez saying, boy, Devers in Fenway, this is a home run. This is a home run in so many different ballparks. But it's San Francisco. It's so tricky. And then they flash on the scoreboard that fly out would have been a home run in literally 0 ballparks in Major League Baseball. That made me laugh. That gave me a little half a chuckle. But the McNeil ball with one out in the sixth inning off of old friend Joey Lucchesi, I mean, I think that ball's out of half the ballparks in Major League Baseball. It's still a double, unlike the Devers ball where it's a fly out. And with a runner on second and one out, a golden opportunity with Marte, Beatty, and Alvarez. And this Randy Rodriguez, who eventually the Mets would get to, and Pete Hoffman was trying to trade me in fantasy in the middle of this game. Now, Hoff, did you try to trade me Randy Rodriguez after he gave up the 2 home runs, or was it before? Because I was behind on DVR, so I'm not sure when you were trying to make that trade.
Do you want me to be honest?
Yeah, after the home runs, right?
Of course, but that's not the reason why I wanted to trade him. I have a strategy right now going on. We're both in the playoffs, by the way, so we have 2 different strategies going on, but I need to mix and match. So that's not the reason why, because of the home runs. It's his 3rd home run he's given up all season.
Here's the thing about relievers, and this relates to the Mets more so than our fantasy league. And I said this about Gregory Soto when they traded for him. I'll say this about Randy Rodriguez. Relievers make no sense. They don't. Their numbers make no sense. So when you see a guy like Randy Rodriguez, and I wrote it down on my scoreboard, scorecard, 0.82 ERA. He's given up 1 home run all year, whatever the stat is. That's amazing. I don't want to take anything away from it, but it would stun nobody if Randy Rodriguez becomes human over the next 2 months. Like, no one in their right mind should expect anywhere close to a 0.82 ERA. And by the way, the same goes with a guy like Gregory Soto, where he's been up and down in his time in Baltimore. He's been up and down really as a reliever throughout baseball since he lost his closer's job with Detroit 6 years ago. So Gregory Soto could come to the Mets and dominate. He's off to a great start. Not saying that will continue, but he could. Relievers make no freaking sense, good and bad. So from a fantasy standpoint, I wouldn't trade for Randy Rodriguez because the odds of him maintaining that are very low. Very low. But thank you for offering him to me. I appreciate it. But great job by the Mets because, look, the reality is this guy's been amazing all year. And after they failed with the runner on second, 1-out opportunity in the 6th inning when Marte grounded out and Alvarez struck out with that nasty slider off the plate, again, I still had that feeling sitting there. We're just not winning this game. We're just not. Felt like a loss. And it felt like one of those losses that we would find a way to accept. Well, they won the series. The Yankees helped us out. We're still in first place. To quote a wise man, no biggie. That's what I was thinking over the course of this game. But Ronny Mauricio had himself a game. Ronny Mauricio had himself a moment because after he gets the base hit in the 3rd inning, after he drives in what was the lead run in the top of the 5th inning on an RBI double, he comes up against this unhittable Randy Rodriguez and hit an absolute P-missile that I didn't think was staying fair. And maybe it was the ESPN camera angles. Maybe I blame them. But off the bat, I just thought it was going to be foul. And Ronny Mauricio does a little dance. He keeps it fair. What an awesome moment for him. What an awesome moment for us. Because Ronny Mauricio was booed a week ago at Citi Field. Let's not forget that. On David Wright Day, 8 days ago, 9 days ago, depending on when you're listening, not that long ago, Ronny Mauricio was hearing it from Met fans. And here's how I feel about Ronny. And I think I said this during our trade deadline edition of the Rico. I've certainly said this on the Fan. I think Ronny Mauricio has the greatest star potential of any of their current infield prospects on the roster. So what I mean by that is I'm not including Jet Williams. I'm talking about Acuna, Vientos, Beatty, and Mauricio. Now, do I think he contributes the most over the next 2 months? My guess, maybe going into Sunday, would be no. In fact, I can't even say thinks, because I think a 4-hit game can really change opinions, especially of David Stearns. I figured he'd be sent down to AAA at some point, especially when the Mets get healthier. Now, Ronny can change that. Ronny performs. He can absolutely change that. A 4-hit game on Sunday helps do that. But my view on Mauricio is I think he's got the greatest potential of any of the other guys. And what we saw on Sunday Night Baseball against the Giants was that potential. He rips 2 doubles. He hits the smoked home run to tie the game. And all these hits are clutch. when you think about it. The RBI double in the 5th inning gives them a 2-1 lead. The home run in the 7th ties the game. The double to lead off the 9th inning, only a 1-run lead, so they're looking for insurance. Those were all huge hits. Even the hit in the 3rd inning, when the Mets started off that 3rd with back-to-back base hits from the 8-9 hitters. So Mauricio hits that home run to tie it, and all of a sudden now I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this team is going to find a way to win it. And Juan Soto, I'm going to rip Juan Soto slightly, but I'm also going to compliment him because it was the game-winning home run. Juan Soto does what he does best, solo home run. But sometimes solo home runs are fine. Not all solo home runs are created equal. And I do have some data on the Juan Soto solo home run kind of craziness that's gone on this season. So this season, Juan has now hit 25 home runs. Okay, pretty good. I mean, that pace is a pace to come very close to what he did last year with the Yankees when he hit 40 home runs. In fact, let me tell you what that exact pace is, because it feels like it's pretty much on the pace to hit 40 home runs. This was the Mets' 106th game of the year. This was his 25th. He is on pace to hit 38 home runs. So a little bit behind the pace of a year ago. Of the 29 home runs, 19 of them have been solo home runs. 19 of them. I mean, that's an obscene number. The other 6, by the way, are all 2-run home runs. So my calculations, and I'll double check myself at a later date, but Juan Soto has not hit a 3-run home run. He has not hit a grand slam. 19 solos, 6 2-run shots. Now, I'm a big fan of perspective. Okay, that's a lot, but what about last year? I will give you last year with the Yankees. He had 40 home runs, 5 3-run home runs, 12 2-run home runs, and 23 solo home runs. So that's what he did last year. 17 of his 40 home runs came with guys on base. This year, only 6 of his 25 home runs have come with guys on base. Now, that's the last thing I'm going to say negatively about Juan Soto, because that was a clutch home run. 2 outs, nobody on, tie game in the 7th inning. The longer this thing goes, you feel like the advantage goes to San Francisco, and Juan goes opposite field. And he erases what was not a very good day at the plate. There are days where Juan goes over 3, but he's hitting the ball hard, and it feels like he's had a lot of bad luck. This was not the case. He weakly grounded out in the 1st. He struck out looking in the 3rd. He had a foul pop up in the 5th. And then he goes opposite field against Randy Rodriguez, who, as Hoff mentioned, wasn't giving up home runs all season long. And the Mets hit 2 of them in the 7th inning to take the lead. What is kind of incredible about the last week and really the course of this winning streak is David Stearns talking something into existence. If you go back to when David met the media, and we did a Rico a few episodes ago, if you missed it, where we analyzed every word, one of the things David Stearns said was, hey, I'll push back on suggesting we're not getting a lot out of the bottom of the order. And as always, even if you don't fully agree with David Stearns, there's some truth to what he's saying. So recently, at that time, yeah, the Mets were getting a little bit more contributions from the bottom of the order. But there certainly has been a stretch this season in which it feels like they're overly reliant on, as Steve Cohen calls them, the Fab Four. It has felt that way. But when David was broached about this subject, he at least had a few days to say, well, you know what? I'd push back. The bottom of the order has been effective. Well, this series against the Giants, David Stearns talked the bottom of the order's ridiculousness into existence. Because just in this game, the finale of this series, the bottom of the order, the 8 and 9 hitters, went 6 for 8. If you want to expand a little bit more, Starling Marte, who was batting 6th, got on base 3 times. Meanwhile, the top 4 hitters, this is Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso, and I'm going to attach Saturday to this as well. Saturday and Sunday, the top 4 hitters in the Met lineup, and I just said who they are. They're the Fab Four. Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso went a combined, are you ready for this? 4 for 36. And yet, the Mets won both games. And a big part of why they did it is because they got contributions from the bottom of the order. Mark Vientos in Saturday's game got the big hit. He drove in the only 2 runs, the RBI double, 2-run double. He was batting 7th. They got a triple from Alvarez batting 8th. So David Stearns has talked it into existence. The Mets are getting great contributions from the bottom of the order, especially in Sunday's game, but even in Saturday's game, where obviously they won the game mostly because of their pitching. We'll get more to that game in a second. But 4 for 36 from the top 4 hitters in the lineup, and it doesn't matter because the bottom half of the order has done such a good job. 5 through 9 hitters, 10 for 18. I mean, major contributions from quote-unquote the other guys. And that's great to see. And the timing of this, just a few days before the trade deadline, almost relaxes the push that I had and a lot of other people had on adding a bat. Because the reality has always been this in adding a bat. And forget the center field situation, because if you trust McNeil's defense enough and just Taylor coming in late to improve McNeil's defense or improve the center field defense, then put that aside. If they're going to get Mark Vientos to come through with a huge 2-run double on a Saturday night, if they're going to get contributions from Ronny Mauricio like they saw Sunday, then no, they don't need to add a bat. If Starling Marte, who since he's come off the injured list, you basically can't get the guy out, if that's going to continue, it's not, but he's going to contribute, then they don't need to add a bat. If that's what Mauricio is going to do, if that's what Vientos is going to do, who only played 1 game in this series, but yet the game he played, he came through with the biggest hit, then the pressure to add a bat gets diminished. Now, should we be fooled by the last couple of weeks of this? No. I think that we have to realize that with young players, and we have seen the full gamut of it this season with all these guys, they're very streaky. I mean, look at Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty's bat has cooled off after Brett Beatty's bat was red hot, after Brett Beatty's bat was streakily bad. Now, the good thing about Brett is as long as he plays good defense and as long as he gives you quality at-bats, like we even saw in Sunday's game, he went over 3, but the walk he drew against Randy Rodriguez was a quality at-bat. As long as he does that, he'll stay in the lineup. But when you look at these 4 guys, Mauricio, Acuna, Vientos, and Beatty, we've seen a lot of good from them this season. We've seen a lot of bad. I mean, we've seen plenty of it. The question is, over the final 2 months of the season, what are we going to see? Ronny Mauricio right now, though, with his contributions over these 2 games, playing Friday's game and playing Sunday's game, or I think as it was playing, Friday's game and Sunday's game, he sat Saturday, is certainly making a bid to remain on this roster. As far as Saturday's game was concerned, I mentioned it, David Peterson I thought was very, very lucky. There were guys on base every single inning. His command was not great. He gave up a ton of hard hit balls, but, much like what Met pitching has been able to do a lot this season, he was able to make the big pitch when he needed to. Got the huge double play in the first inning when Matt Chapman lined out. Got the huge double play in the second inning when Luis Matos grounded out. He put the first 2 guys on base in the 4th inning, and it could have been a disaster. And the Giants only managed 1 run on an RBI ground out. And he got a huge pop-up of Luis Matos with guys on base. He put 2 guys on in the 5th inning. He struck out Matt Chapman. Put 2 guys on in the 6th inning. Got a huge line out. So Peterson's 6th inning 1-run performance was certainly helped out by great defense from Pete Alonso. Spent a few more minutes on Pete coming up on his defense. And just luck. You know, sometimes luck plays a part of it. You give up a ton of hard hit balls and they're right at guys. It's a little bit lucky. But those outs that he got were more impressive than normal because the Met offense did nothing. So every time he was getting a big out, it was either in a scoreless game or with the Mets down 1-0. And the Mets failed to take advantage of opportunities. Go back to the first inning when Matt Chapman made a rare error. And here's Starling Marte with 2-1 and 2 out. He lined out. They got a 2-out triple from Francisco Alvarez. Tyrone Taylor struck out. The worst was the 4th. They load up the bases with nobody out. Vientos strikes out, and Alvarez bounces into an easy 5-3 double play. I mean, epitome of the Met runner in scoring position trouble. But sometimes, especially when you pitch well, and the Mets certainly pitched well in this series, It only takes one big hit. And I know I've said this a lot about Mark Vientos this season, and Mark Vientos is not playing all the time. We saw it in this series. He only started one game in this series. And the last at-bat he had was the biggest at-bat he had, which was the clutch 2-out, 2-run double in the 6th inning. And that was enough. That was the only big hit the Mets would get in that entire game. And sometimes you can make it stand up if you pitch well enough, which they certainly did, not just David Peterson, but the 3 scoreless innings they got out of Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek, and Edwin Diaz. But the hope is, again, I've said this a million times, that big hit by Vientos really sparks him. The challenge that Carlos Mendoza has is Grady gets this big hit. He takes him out for defense immediately, which I'm mixed about, because when is the perfect time to take a guy out for defense? When that spot in the order is going to come up again, and it did. Runner on third, 1 out in the 8th. Instead of Vientos, it's Luis Angel Acuna. That's the kind of the tough decision, the tough back and forth you have to have as a manager when you want to improve your defense. I'm all for improving your defense, but understand you are weakening your offense when you take a player like that out early. But the issue or the challenge that Mendy has besides that is who should play. You know, Mark Vientos comes through with that huge RBI double, and the feeling is, oh, he should play the next day. But what about Ronny Mauricio? What about Brett Beatty? What about Starling Marte? I know he's the veteran, but Marte's been hitting. This is a good problem to have. This is not bad. The bad problem is when nobody's hitting and you're trying to figure out who to play. But it was difficult for Mendy to allow Vientos to build off of his momentum from Saturday because he didn't play him on Sunday. And that sucks for him. It sucks for Mark. Didn't suck for us, though, because Ronny Mauricio and Starling Marte did a fine job. But I want to go back to that decision to pull Vientos. When you take a guy out for defense in the 6th inning because they had an at-bat, you got to manage ahead of time, and you got to think to yourself, okay, well, what about later in this game? And so the decision Mendy had to make once he goes to Acuna to pinch run and then eventually stay in the game for defense is in the 8th inning with a runner on third and 1 out, nursing a 1-run lead. Do you want to take Acuna out, pinch hit with Jeff McNeil or Ronny Mauricio, decrease your defense slightly? It's not the worst defense. Certainly upgrade over Vientos, who was initially in the game. But do you want to do that to give yourself a better opportunity to score a run? And I kind of lean towards yes. I lean towards runner on third, 1 out in the 8th inning. You got to get that run home. Like the Mets were able to get that run home on Sunday. On Saturday, and I know it doesn't matter. It turned out not to matter, only because the Mets didn't give up a run, but they came close to giving up a freaking run. If you're Mendy the next time, you got 2 choices. Number 1, do you just keep Vientos in the game and say, you know what? He's played a decent third base. Let me keep him in. It's still a close game. That bat still may come up in a big spot. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is to not go to Acuna that early. Like, I'm all for Acuna coming into games late for defense. Obviously, it was also the advantage of putting him out there for speed when he pinch ran, but it's also runner on second, 2 outs in the 6th. Like, is that really the moment you need to get speed? So one option is keep Vientos in the game. The other option is when you take Vientos out for defense, maybe it's Ronny Mauricio comes into the game. Maybe it's Jeff McNeil who comes into the game, because think about what you're doing when Vientos comes out. If you go to McNeil, just like if you went to Acuna, you move Beatty to third base anyway. You're improving your defense, maybe not as much as if Acuna comes in, but you are clearly improving your defense and allowing yourself to have a good bat, or at least a better bat, still in the lineup. If you go to Acuna, which he did, either you're stuck with a bat that's not as good. Acuna ended up striking out with a runner on third, less than 2 outs, or you're forced to pinch hit for Acuna. And now you're using multiple bench players. Either way, I don't like what Mendy did, is my point. Either go for better defense with a better bat with McNeil or Mauricio, or just keep Vientos in the game. Because at 2-1 in the 6th inning, like, there's plenty of opportunities for the Giants to retake the lead. Now, the advantage, or at least the cool thing that Mendy has at his disposal, is right now, through the sample size that we've had, I think they're all good defenders besides Vientos. I think Mauricio's been a pretty good defender. McNeil, wherever you stick him, has been pretty solid. Obviously, Brett Beatty's done a great job. Beatty has proven that Mendy trusts him the most because he ends up staying in these games, no matter what, for defense. So that's the thing I think he's got to pay attention to. Let's go back to Friday. I didn't discuss this as much when we did episode 519, the decision to DH Jeff McNeil, have Beatty at second base, Mauricio at third base. I think the reason that he does that is because he believes in Beatty's defense more than he believes in McNeil's defense. But more than that, he believes in Beatty at third base. If you DH Brett Beatty instead of Jeff McNeil and have McNeil at second base, you no longer have the option of moving Beatty to third base. So I think that's kind of what Mendoza's thinking. And it shows you how much faith he has in Brett Beatty's defense, and rightfully so. The guy's defense has been great. Let's celebrate. The Mets have won 7 consecutive games, and you can celebrate your highlights with Mio's Sparkling Sake, a true crowd pleaser. Light, bubbly, and easy to enjoy, whether you're at Citi Field or your favorite spot. Ask for Mio's Sparkling Sake by name, a new tradition served chilled, imported from Japan. It's the official sake of Rico Brogna. Now, Henry Faustino is threatening us, Hoff. Henry Faustino says, if you guys do a net negative after this series, I'm boycotting you.
Seriously?
Yeah, he doesn't want a net negative because the Mets won 3 straight games, and he says if we do it, he's boycotting us.
I mean, that's kind of unfair. We have to do it.
We have to do it.
Yeah.
We got to do it, Henry. And by you threatening to boycott us, you're making me want to do it even more. Not because I want you to boycott us, but I don't take well to threats. That'd be my response. Now, look, if Henry's point is the Mets just won 3 games against the Giants, what is the negative? I agree with you. I don't think there's an obvious net negative in this series. I'm not giving it to Pete Alonso, despite his lack of offense, and it was a bad offensive series for Pete Alonso because his defense was so good. So despite the 1 for 13, calling him a net negative because he did nothing offensively, including bouncing into that double play on Saturday and bouncing into a double play on Sunday. He's a double play machine, striking out a lot, not even making great contact. I think his defense was so good in this series that he was actually a leading contender for the I'm the Man Now star of the series before Sunday's game. I thought Pete Alonso had a rare opportunity to win the award despite not hitting because his defense was that good. So I would throw Pete out. I think that Hoff would probably say Edwin Diaz because he was so shaky in his 2 save opportunities. Am I right? Isn't that somebody that you would suggest?
There's 2 options. Diaz on Saturday was pretty bad. Like, and I people crush me for that too. I'm like, dude, he got 3 outs. The Yaz strikeout was lucky. I mean, I don't know if he even went for it. I know that we got lucky.
He swung. He swung the slider in the dirt. Lucky.
I don't know. I don't know. That was questionable if he really went. And then the other dude, the 3 other hits, like there was 1 hit and then 2 line drives. He was getting smoked.
He was getting smoked. I'll totally agree with that. I mean, and the double by Jung-Ho Lee, which could have been a triple. Good play by Soto. Let's give Juan Soto some credit for that because that easily could have been a triple. But yeah, he was shaky on Saturday. I don't think anyone would deny that. And even on Sunday, you know, he walked a guy, hits a guy, walks a guy, bases loaded, 1 out. He was shaky as all hell, but he's certainly not the net negative because he got the final outs. He got the job done. So I don't want to belabor it, but to Henry Faustino, I apologize. The rule of the Rico Brogna is there always needs to be a net negative, and there always needs to be a Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series. I think we'll make it short and sweet. For the 2nd straight week, it should be Kodai Senga. He wasn't good. He gave back multiple leads, 2 outs and nobody on. He gives up the hit to Adames. He gives up the home run to Chapman. He walked 5 guys. No harm, no foul. I still love Kodai. I still trust Kodai. But he is, and this is the first time this has ever happened, he is the net negative for the 2nd straight week. That has never happened in the history of Rico Brogna. So congratulations to Kodai Senga. Now let's get to the star. When you win 3 straight games and we're all in such a good mood, there are so many candidates. I mentioned Pete Alonso's defense over the first 2 games. he is a candidate. Starling Marte went 4 for 6 in this series. He is a candidate. Believe it or not, despite rarely playing, Mark Vientos, that 2-run double on Saturday night was monstrous. He is a candidate. Any of the bullpen arms, Reed Garrett pitched him back-to-back days. Want to give him candidacy. Edwin Diaz, despite us just ripping him. Either of the starters, David Peterson or Clay Holmes. But I got to tell you, to me, I know Juan Soto had a game-winning home run. Thank you, Juan. I think the star of the series is Ronny Mauricio. I think he earned it. I think that 4-hit game on Sunday night, the clutchness of the game-tying home run, what could have been the go-ahead RBI double in the 5th inning, the insurance double in the 9th inning. He got on base 3 times on Friday. And really that home run in the 7th inning was so huge. And stunning. I didn't feel it coming. I didn't see it coming. So tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the star of the series should be, despite all the great candidates, Ronny Mauricio.
Here's the thing is that there wasn't one person that kind of stuck out in all 3 games. There wasn't one guy that was like, oh my God, he had a fantastic weekend. Even even Juan Soto, he had 3 hits, the game-winning home run on Sunday. But besides that, he had 2 other hits the rest of the series. I mean, it wasn't that fantastic. Lindor did go 3 for 5 on Friday, so we got to give him a little tip of the cap. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think 100% Ronny Mauricio because again, I don't think it's the angle. I think he kept the ball fair. I think that he I don't know if you saw him, but Mauricio was like, come on, like pointing. He was like wishing it, willing it.
Man.
He did. And I think, and that was the game changer right there. Well, for Randy Rodriguez, all-star, no doubt about it. Congratulations, Ronny Mauricio. Is this his first time?
First time.
And I'll tell you this much, and you said it earlier too, that you love his potential for the infielders. I've been saying this for the longest time too. I think he is a no-doubter, going to be a star in this league. He reminds me a bit of Yordan Alvarez. They compared it to him. It'd be like a year or two they compared Mauricio to Yordan Alvarez. But also, dude, like he hasn't filled out yet. Yeah. This guy is still growing. Well, he's going to be a beast.
So I was conflicted all day. On Sunday, Mets not playing during the afternoon. They were the Sunday night game. I was visiting my family, and I had heard, or someone texted me, the trade rumor from Bob Nightingale about Mark Vientos for Luis Robert Jr. And this relates to Ronny Mauricio, which is why I'm bringing it up right now. I've always been a fan of Luis Robert Jr. Going back to the offseason Ricos, I talked about trading for him and wanting to trade for him and the potential that he has. We've already seen it a few years ago, the affordability of the contract, the defense in center field. He's a perfect fit for the Mets. I think Luis Robert Jr. is a great fit for the Mets. I think that coming into this lineup, in this environment, I think there's a great chance we'll see the best of him. He plays good defense. He steals bases. He'll probably steal even more bases on this team with how good they are. I would love if the Mets could acquire Luis Robert Jr., right? Now, if Bob Nightingale's reporting is accurate, that the White Sox want Mark Vientos, my gut reaction when I first heard it was, hell no. That was my first reaction was, come on, I can't forget what Mark did for this team last year. And I still believe, despite the overall numbers, that a hot streak can be coming from Mark Vientos. He has shown signs of it. I'm not ready to give up on him. But here's the caveat to all that. Sometimes it's about fit. Sometimes it's about the puzzle pieces. The Mets have a lot of guys who can play third base. They've got Ronny Mauricio. They've got Brett Beatty. I mean, both of those guys are third basemen who have contributed so far and still have potential. They've got DHs because either of those guys can DH. Not that they have a lot of DHs. Their DH production has been like historically bad. But the point is, Mark Vientos didn't play in 2 of these 3 games. Didn't play in them, which shows you there are ways because of the options that they have that Mark Vientos isn't even an everyday player here. Center field, while Jeff McNeil's done a great job out there and Tyrone Taylor plays good defense, is still something that even if it's not this year, even if you think they can get by with McNeil and Taylor, long-term, who is it? Is it Drew Gilbert who's been hitting in the minors? Is it Carson Bench? Is it someone from the system? Is it someone else? Luis Robert Jr. would be an interesting try for the next year and a half. So Vientos for Robert, even though off the top I don't like it based on my belief in Vientos, there's no arguing the fit. They got a lot of guys who can play third base. They don't have a lot of guys who can play center field. And I think when Mauricio has a 4-for-4 game, this is why I bring it back to him and the untapped potential that he has. The more Mauricio hits, the less Vientos plays. He will have a direct impact on the playing time of Mark Vientos. Beatty will have less of an impact because of Beatty's ability to play second base and push McNeil to center field. So the more Mauricio hits, the more expendable Vientos is, and the more expendable Vientos is, the more it would make sense to trade him for a center fielder like Robert Jr.
Yeah, the problem is that I just still don't believe in Robert Jr. I know that there's always that untapped potential that everyone keeps on talking about, but he hasn't shown it yet. And I understand that the White Sox are a dismal organization. They're a franchise that is, I mean, if you could, have regression, you would toss out the White Sox. They'd be gone. But that being said, though, does that mean that I don't want him to be a cancer here. I don't want him to come in and be
Why
like,
would he be a cancer? What would make you think that? Or
I don't know. What's his bad? Because I've heard stories about him not really trying so hard. Again, you get wrapped up in the malaise of a bad White Sox team. You don't want to. I mean, it's a fresh start for sure, but I don't want there to be some other bad habits that he brings to this locker room. I don't want.
I think if anything, because you're going into a better locker room and you're going to a better roster, and you've been stuck in the malaise, as you said, of being on a terrible team. I think that there's every reason to believe that when you come here, those things go away. We talked about that with O'Neal Cruz, and I feel that way. It's just a matter of what is worth giving up. And Vientos is a guy who I think most of us don't want to give up on. But he may not get a lot of playing time. The more Mauricio hits, the less he's going to play.
Yeah, but I'm a hard-ass dude, and I'm always about the guy. Like, I've been so much like, can't wait to get rid of Brett Beatty. And he's forcing his hand. I mean, he hit up until Sunday's game, he hit like 9 hits in 8 games. So it's not like he has really been that cold. He just hasn't gotten power hits or whatever, not home runs. That being said, though, like, you have a surplus. Eventually, you got to mix and match. You can't have 1,000 infielders and 2 outfilders.
No, that's where the fit makes sense. That's where on the surface a trade like that does make sense. Let's get to a lot of your emails. We're going to go rapid fire to ricob@gmail.com. We'll start it off with Avi, who writes, Evan and Pete, you guys have been talking about how inconsistent the Mets offense has been, and they have huge issues scoring with runners in scoring position. Evan, you've been complaining about it for a while now. Even though they swept the Giants, they were a combined 7 for 34 with runners in scoring position. That's not something you can be doing if you want to make a big run in October. How are you guys okay with Stearns not adding a bat at the deadline? I understand the center field market is not great and won't be an upgrade over Jeff, but they need a bat, especially when it's their top hitters besides Pete, who's struggling with runners in scoring position. Let's not have a 2022 deadline all over again. Tyler Naquin and Daniel Vogelbach. Here's the key, Avi. I want them to add a bat. The bat needs to be an upgrade over what they currently have. And when you look out there at the trade market, there aren't a lot of bats that are significant upgrades over what they have right now. Eugenio Suarez would be. He would come here and be the third baseman or the DH. Be curious to see what the price tag is on a guy like that. We just talked about Luis Robert Jr., but a lot of other guys are not necessarily upgrades. But I felt for a while that, yeah, I'd like to add a bat. Jimmy Kearney writes, go ahead.
Oh, can I just say something too? Yep. And I don't disagree. It's the bar that's being set. And that's why, too, I don't know if you heard that quote from Stearns on Friday, that they're even interested in starting pitching. But the likelihood of a top-level starting pitcher being available is slim to none right now.
Well, because I think right now the Mets are in a very good position. It's funny how quickly things can change. I don't know if we would have said this a month ago, but the Mets are in a great spot when it comes to depth. They've got 5 starting pitchers. Paul Blackburn went deep into his AAA start. Say what you want about him. He's a depth starting pitcher. And then you've got prospects on the come who could come up at any moment and make a start, whether it's Brandon Sproat or it's Nolan McLean or even bringing back Blade Tidwell. So they probably feel good about, hey, we got 8 starting pitchers. We're good with our depth. So if they're going to add a starting pitcher, and Buster only said this on the ESPN game broadcast, is that guy starting a playoff game? If he's not starting a play, if he's not breaking the top 4, then we don't need to trade for him because we don't need starting pitching depth. And right now, here are the guys. Kodai Senga, despite the 2 mediocre starts in a row, David Peterson, and
Sean
Manaea. That's it. The 4th spot right now is either Clay Holmes or Frankie Montas. If you can get a starter, and it obviously goes back to the Holmes thing where you could always move him to the bullpen, but if you can get a starter who would make that 4th start in the postseason, then they'd be willing to go get him. And I think offensively, it's sort of the same thing. Who are they getting? And that's the question. Suarez is an answer, by the way. Suarez is a fine answer because he's a hell of a bat. If the Mets added Eugenio Suarez, he's the 3rd baseman or DH right off the top. And he's probably batting 5th in this lineup, protecting Pete Alonso, unless you want to split the lefties up. So he's a good answer, but who else? And that's kind of the litmus test that David Stearns has to pass. Jimmy writes, I can't argue Stearns should get a bat, but I also can't argue that since he pushed back on the media questions about the bottom of the order not producing, they have produced. In the last 15 games, Ronny Mauricio, 295, 367 on base, 523 slug. Brett Beatty, 270 batting average, 360 on base, 455 slug. Alvarez in the 5 games since he's been back, 353 average, 450 on base, 765 slug. I don't know how a Met fan can watch Ronny Mauricio play baseball and think trade him unless the Mets are going all in, which would be a top-end reliever, a bat, and a top-end starter. That's all in. Since Stearns isn't doing that, so I wouldn't trade Ronny Mauricio. Never thought I'd see a West Coast trip start like this. Way to go, boys. Yeah, they're hitting. And no doubt, ever since David Stearns said, come on, you guys are wrong, the bottom of the order is great, the bottom of the order has been great. Robert writes, would like to hear your opinions on Taylor and McNeil splitting time in center field. I can't watch Taylor strike out 2 to 3 times a game all season. Would you trade Vientos for Luis Robert? If not, would you upgrade center field through the minors with Drew Gilbert or another free agent? Well, Rob, here's the thing I would disagree with you about. And the Mets haven't done it yet. I'm willing to watch Jeff McNeil play center field every day. They still don't do it because we still see a lot of Tyrone Taylor. We still see Tyrone Taylor every other game. And I agree with your frustration around Tyrone Taylor's offense. I think his defense has been splendid. And so what I would start doing, unless there is an upgrade or a trade coming, is play Jeff McNeil every day in center field. I've got Vientos, I've got Beatty, I've got Acuna, and I got Mauricio, all who can play something between second base and third base. So I don't need Jeff McNeil as a center fielder. As a second baseman. I don't. Why do I need him over there? I need him more in center field. So in terms of what do I think of them splitting the time, I'd rather see Jeff McNeil play most of the time in center field. To answer the Robert Vientos question, again, my first reaction was no, I still believe in Mark, but the fit makes a lot of sense. It does. Walter writes, Evan and Pete, the inefficient pitching of Clay Holmes and Kodai Senga the last 2 series emphasizes the Mets need a top-of-the-rotation starter. It's a must before the deadline. Also, a bat is a necessity. Juan Soto seems to struggle under pressure. It's why his hitting average is so low this year. And when he was in San Diego, the expectations were high and he struggled under the pressure. With the Yankees last year, he didn't struggle like that because of Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge took a lot of pressure off Soto. Bottom line is a top starter and a good batter needed with relief help. That's Walter. I don't really agree with the Soto stuff. I can't fully explain the lack of clutch hitting. I can't fully explain mostly hitting solo home runs, but I don't think he's struggling under the pressure. In terms of Holmes and Senga, I don't want to get nuts off a handful of starts, especially with Senga. I think with Holmes, what we have to accept is that he's a 5-inning pitcher. That's what we have to accept with him. Sam writes, the New York Mets are 17 games ahead of the Atlanta Braves. That's it. That's the message. That is pretty cool. Dan writes, the most important acquisition so far this season, Brooks Raley. I tell you, very under-the-radar move when they brought Raley in, coming off of Tommy John surgery. He's been great. And now with Gregory Soto, who had a wonderful debut, they went from having 0 lefties you can trust to 2 pretty good lefties. Soto had a great debut. That was so encouraging to see because it wasn't the easiest spot. He did get 2 lefties, which I think Mendy's going to try to do because the Gregory Soto splits are extreme in terms of getting lefties out. And I thought what was really impressive was the Devers at bat. So 2 outs and nobody on in the 7th inning, protecting this 1-run lead the Mets just got. And Devers is fouling pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch off, and he gets him to tap one back to the mound on the 10th pitch of the at-bat. Long way to go before we find out if Gregory Soto goes down as Billy Taylor or Addison Reed, but a good start for Gregory Soto in his Met debut.
Question, though, to rewind it a little bit. When I believe it was before they went to Soto, they went to Raley in a situation, and Eduardo Perez was teeing it up. He's like, dude, they're gonna go. There's a left-handed hitter up right now, but they're gonna go to Wilmer Flores, if they bring in Raley, and that's exactly what they did. Do you feel like that was well thought out by Carlos Mendoza?
I think Mendy knew. Mendy's not an idiot. Mendy knew, okay, I got 2 options here. I could stick with Reed Garrett versus Dominic Smith, which would be the matchup because Dom was due to hit. Reed Garrett had just struck out back-to-back guys, so Reed was kind of feeling his groove after giving up the leadoff hit. I either have Garrett versus Dom, or I can go to Raley, and they're going to go to Flores. So it's basically, if you're Carlos Mendoza, which matchup do you prefer? Do you prefer Reed Garrett versus Dominic Smith, righty versus lefty, or Brooks Raley versus Wilmer Flores? You tell me. My opinion would have been to stick with Reed Garrett. I didn't think the move was egregious. I didn't think Mendy got caught with his pants down. He knew. He was just choosing the Flores-Raley matchup over the Garrett-Dom Smith matchup. I would have stuck with Reed only because he got the back-to-back strikeouts, and I kind of felt good about him getting through the inning. So it was a 50-50 move. I would have decided on not making the move that Carlos did.
Same. And I always think that whenever Wilmer steps up, like there's a little bit of like, not sour grapes with the Mets, because obviously he had a 2015. He did go on the World Series run with them and all that stuff. But I do feel like he does like to stick it to us a little bit.
Well,
so
yeah.
Once that move was being made, I'm like, here we go. We could get a sweep, but instead we're gonna get Wilmer Flores with a 2-run bomb.
I get that. I get the feeling that Wilmer's going to stick it up our ass. I mean, I understand that. It's been so long, though, man. I mean, Wilmer hasn't been a Met in 7-8 years now. It's been a long time.
I know. And they love him in San Francisco. They love him there. He's had some really good seasons.
Wilmer's a very likable player, and he's a useful player. I mean, the Mets could use him, right-handed bat. I mean, he's he would be the Starling Marte, except can actually play the field a little bit. Julia was at the game. Julia was at Oracle Park, as they call it now. It'll always be Pac Bell Park to me. And Julia writes, Evan and Pete, I'm at Mets Giants, and I'm sending this email right after watching Matt Chapman hit his 2nd home run of the game. Right before Chapman came up to bat, I was thinking that Mendoza shouldn't have let Senga face him again. I had a bad feeling and was unfortunately proven right. Senga was at 87 pitches. Would you have taken him out? Also, every time Juan Soto comes to bat, the crowd boos him mercilessly. I can't figure out why he's getting all this hate. Hopefully, the Mets come back to sweep. Well, they did. So Julia, at the time, didn't know it, but the Mets did hold on and win. I wouldn't have made that move. I understand your thinking. Like, all right, here's Senga. Pitch count's high. He just gave a base hit to Adames. He had given up a home run to Chapman in an inning earlier. Let me make the move. There's 2 outs in the 5th inning. And I still view Kodai Senga as an ace-like pitcher, or at least a guy that can become an ace-like pitcher. And I know there's a lot of people skeptical out there saying, come on, Ev, he doesn't go deep enough into games. He's not reliable enough. He's not healthy enough. He is still kind of new to Major League Baseball when you really think about it. It's his 3rd year. He's only made, 45 starts. His stuff and his performance shows you he could be a top of the rotation arm if he could ever conquer those 2 things, going deeper into games and being more reliable. So I wanted to challenge him. He gives up a base hit to Adames, 2 outs in the 5th inning. I'm not taking him out. So I get the thinking. I think if this is the playoffs, maybe it's a little bit different. But in late July, no. I want Kodai Senga to get through that inning. In terms of Soto, Soto gets booed everywhere because he makes a lot of money. Very, very simple. He had a very publicized free agency. I think the Giants were on the outskirts of it, like every team was. Like, yeah, we love him. He's not going to come here. And when anyone gets that kind of money, they're just going to be treated like they're the enemy. Christopher writes, Evan, there was a lot of talk about how maybe a 6-man rotation could be the future. I think my idea of a 5-man plus rotation could be the future. This is you have a 6-man who's going to pitch 5 or 6 innings a week in the 6th and 7th inning. They are the second starter modified long man approach. I'm confused, but I'm intrigued right now by Christopher. Clay Holmes, Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas give us 5 innings, and you have our second starter coming in the 6th and 7th. This person is a starter, not a reliever in the sense, pitches 2 innings every other game with a predetermined 2 innings. Now, all of a sudden, you have a real path to 7 innings out of my modified starting rotation. From Christopher. Who would that guy be? Paul Blackburn? Remember when the Mets tried to go to Paul Blackburn for a couple of innings with a lead? That's what started all this losing. That game against Tampa on a Friday night. I think that what they can consider, and maybe they will come September with some of the young arms, is using those guys to piggyback a starter. We saw that in the final game before the All-Star break, not with a young starter, but Senga Minaya, where Holmes Minaya, not Senga Minaya, where Clay Holmes went the first 5 and then Sean pitched the last 4 or 3 2/3 until he gave up the game winner. I think there could be some scenarios where that's the case. Let me go to Michael about Pete Alonso's defense. So I have a theory on why Pete's defense is overlooked. I think it's a testament to how we judge first base defense as a whole. The 2 defensive metrics that they have made its way to the mainstream the last few years are OAA, outs above average, and DRS, defensive run saved. Specifically, OAA is really a terrible way to judge a first baseman's contribution because it focuses all on range, which is not a very important part of a first baseman's game and something Pete Alonso has very little of evidence of his career. Has very little of as evidenced by his career OAA of -26. What we need is a defensive stat specifically geared towards first baseman, similar to framing run value and blocks above average for catchers. There's a way it can be done. The stat I propose is scooping run value or scoops above average. Obviously, not every scoop is the same. Some are easier, longer hops. Some are trickier, short hops, etc. So we take the amount of scoops a first baseman makes in a season and see how many outs and runs that player saved relative to the average first baseman. I think this would be a better indicator than OAA. What are you laughing about? You don't like this idea?
Did you just read? Did you just I know what you just read. Did you actually hear what you just read? Scoops above average. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about scoops above average. I mean, he's the best scooper in baseball. God bless him.
But Michael's right. So I went into this rabbit hole on Saturday night. So Pete Alonso's defense on Friday and Saturday were ridiculous.
Yes.
I mean, I wrote it down, and you know what? Screw it. It's the Rico Brogna. I'm going to bore you with every great play he made. I'm going to do it just to put in perspective how good his defense was. Saturday night. No, back to game 1. Let me get this straight.
The first inning, he made 4 plays in the first 2 innings.
Game 1, first inning on a comebacker. Clay Holmes makes a terrible throw. Pete Alonso makes an incredible scoop. That's great play number 1. In the second inning, Casey Schmidt, it's a ground ball to shortstop. Lindor makes a bad throw. Another great scoop by Pete. In the third inning, Matt Chapman hits a ground ball to Ronny Mauricio, and he makes that throw that's offline where Pete catches it and tags Chapman. They call him safe on the field. They review it, and it's clear that Pete tags him out, even though Pete didn't know he tagged him out. Pete's reaction to the challenge was, why are we challenging? But hey, it's okay. So first 3 innings, 3 great plays.
So wait, I feel like you're missing one too.
What am I missing? I usually write down the GPs or the APs or the UBBs.
There was a play, I believe it was hit to Pete. It was deep past the first base bag, and he had to throw it to who pitched on
Clay Holmes.
Friday? Clay Holmes. Yeah, he had to throw to Clay Holmes, and he was perfect. I think that was the second inning.
Yeah, I see a 3-1 put out on Jung Ho Lee. I did not put an asterisk next to it that it was a great play.
You
You may
missed
be
that
right.
one.
Maybe I'm a tough grader. What can I tell you? Then you go to game 2 of this series, and you've got another amazing play on the wild throw by David Peterson to start the 3rd inning. Then you've got the great play by Lindor in which Alonso makes an even better scoop. And then obviously the game-saving leaping play against Patrick Bailey. I counted 7 awesome defensive plays that saved something significant in the first 2 games. So as this is happening, I was doing what our last emailer was doing. I was on Fangraphs and I was looking at his stats, and they're not good. But he's right on why they're not good. Like, what is OAA, outs above average? What is it? It really is judging your range. And, okay, so you want to tell me that Pete Alonso doesn't have the greatest range? It's probably true. It is true. But what about all those plays I just mentioned? Do you not get credit for those? There's no stat to indicate that. And I don't know if it's just scoops, because it's not just scoops. It's a lot of different. It's the play with Chapman. That wasn't a scoop. That was a high throw or the leaping play. So these defensive metrics are not fair to him. They're just not. Like, I watch the guy every day, and I've been screaming this for years, and sometimes I get pushback. Like, Sal and I have argued about this, where I'm like, I don't know what you're watching. I think the guy's a really good defensive first baseman. And he says he's got a DH. And I'm like, we can't be on different planets any more than we are, and we're both watching, so what's going on? Like, am I crazy to not think he's good at first base? I'm not saying he's great. I'm not saying he's a Gold Glover, but he's freaking good.
Oh, after this weekend, he definitely could be a Gold Glover for sure. I mean, if you watch the freaking games, he's no doubt a Gold Glover. But it's the gracefulness. That's what it is. Even when he makes these plays, it looks awkward. Like, there was a ball that basically almost like ricocheted him off the bag, it felt like. He's not graceful, which is why people don't give him credit. But I'll tell you this much. The final out on Saturday, that view they have of behind the catcher, of him, I mean, that I had to show my son. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous.
And think about it. If he doesn't make the play, it's a tie game. That's probably lose. So it's not just a great defensive play. It's a game-saving defensive play. He had a wonderful, wonderful series defensively. And I'm telling you, Saturday night, after the Mets won that game, he was the leader in the clubhouse for the Rico I'm the Man star in the series. All right, so 7 in a row, game and a half lead. The other thing that's really cool is the Dodgers have gotten picked off a little bit. So as things stand right now, the New York Mets are, let me see, we are a half game behind Chicago, Milwaukee for the best record in the National League, which would be home field advantage throughout. The Mets have opened up a 1-game lead on the LA Dodgers, who have lost back-to-back games to the Red Sox. And the Mets have the tiebreaker on LA. And of course that matters because winning the division is cool, but winning the division really means something if you get home field advantage, not only throughout the playoffs, but you can get a first-round bye. And the way things stand right now, the Mets would be getting a first-round bye. They're also comforting themselves in terms of just making the playoffs. The Giants, coming into this weekend, was the number 1 team not in the postseason. And the Mets went out and swept them. And now, when you look at the difference, the Mets have an 8-game lead on San Francisco, but a 6-game lead over making the playoffs because the Cincinnati Reds are 56-50. So the Mets are 6 games up on just making the playoffs. Obviously, we've got bigger goals, but what was really effective about this weekend, and really over the last week, they've won 7 in a row, is they've created a lot of wiggle room in terms of just making the playoffs. Now, they've got a chance to create more room against San Diego. They're going to see Dylan Cease on Monday night, so you'll hear a lot about trade rumors. Could be Dylan Cease's final start as a San Diego Padre if A.J. Preller is going to pull the trigger. But we got Frankie Montas, Dylan Cease on Monday night. We've got Sean Manaea on Tuesday night. Padres have not announced the rest of their rotation. And Clay Holmes is going to pitch on Wednesday. What is very interesting about Wednesday is that is Clay Holmes on regular rest. The Mets are in the midst of a stretch of games right now in which they don't need a 6th starter. And they only need to throw 1 guy on regular rest. So Clay Holmes, who's only done it a handful of times and has not been effective, is going to get that chance on Wednesday. Then they play their next batch of games, the homestand against the Giants and the Guardians. And David Peterson will be the one guy to pitch on regular rest. Then they've got a 3-game series against the Brewers that are surrounded by off days. Then they've got another 6-game stretch with off days around it, where, again, only one guy will have to pitch on regular rest. The next time they have to consistently pitch guys on regular rest isn't until August 25th. In fact, my math tells me that's when they'll need a 6th starting pitcher if they're willing to throw others on regular rest, but continue to avoid Kodai Senga on regular rest. Now, Paul Blackburn is on his way back. I think that's an easy addition to the bullpen. I know Rico Garcia's pitched well, but unfortunately, he's probably going to be the odd man out, and Blackburn will be added to this pen as a long man. Hopefully he can pitch reasonably well as a long man, because the few times the Mets used him in that role, he was abysmal, including that game we talked about against Tampa that opened up the losing. But either way, great start to this West Coast trip. My goal was 4-2. I got to raise the goal now. I don't want to lose 2 out of 3 to San Diego. Win 2 out of 3, make it 5-1. Let's go from there. As far as checking out the rivals and who everyone else is playing, the Philadelphia Phillies just played the New York Yankees. They now go to Chicago to play the White Sox. So, unfortunately, the Phillies have a chance to fatten themselves up by playing the Chicago White Sox. And then they play the Tigers for an interesting 3-game series in Philadelphia. So that's the state of where things are. We certainly should feel good going into the trade deadline. My expectations remain the same. While I think they're going to talk about a bat and they're going to talk about a starting pitcher, I still think they're going to add other kind of lottery ticket bullpen arms before the trade deadline on Thursday. As far as what we're going to do, I'm going to try to stay up late, as will Hoff, for these games against San Diego. We may have some instant reactions right after the Monday game and the Tuesday game, but we'll definitely have a Rico series recap on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, here's my plan, Hoff, if you can make this thing work. Thursday's going to be an interesting day on WFAN because it's also Giants Day. So we're bringing our show out to Giant Camp while simultaneously doing trade deadline stuff. There's a Yankee Day game, so we're splitting the signal. It'll be a regular show. But as soon as that show is over, which is 6:30, the trade deadline is 6, I plan, if you're good with it, on doing a trade deadline reaction drive home show from Giant Camp. I got the microphone all set up, and we'll react to whatever happened or didn't happen around the Mets and possibly some of their rivals. So right after the trade deadline, if you're looking for entertainment, we should be on right after at about 6:30, right after I go off the air at WFAN. We'll come on and do a driving back from the Quest Diagnostic Center, Rico Brogna, if you're up for it.
And, knowing how it is leaving from Quest Diagnostic, especially on a Thursday evening, this podcast might be 2 hours.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's perfect. Like, in my brain, I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to keep myself entertained for 2 hours. And there you go. We're going to instant react to it. Usually with these podcasts, I can't guarantee you a time. We get to it. We promise that it'll be in your inbox the following morning. Don't worry. But this is one of those rare times I think we can guarantee a time. 6:30 Thursday, the Rico Brogna trade deadline postgame show. There you go. Good. So get ready for it. That's coming up on Thursday. So very busy week of the Rico Brogna. If you've missed any episodes, you can always go back and listen. Like if you want to hear an in-depth recap of Friday night's victory, episode 519. Just download, subscribe. You're good to go. Anyhow, thank you very much for listening, downloading, and subscribing to another happy edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.